Hello everyone, welcome to my holiday sketchbook walkthrough. This is a watercolor sketchbook that I took with me on my recent holidays, and we will see what I painted there. So this first page is not from the holidays, it was just a test page that I did to test my supplies because I have never did such a holiday sketchbook. So I wasn't sure how it will go and I wanted to test painting in it to feel more confident. On the next two pages I have some color swatches of the colors that I took with me. If you are curious about which colors I took and why those, I have a separate video about this topic in which I walk you through a process of testing and choosing those exact colors. So all paintings are from Croatia, and in advance I apologize if I pronounce those names incorrectly. I tried to find pronunciation for most of them but couldn't find all, so sorry for that. The first two paintings are from Dubrovnik. We were staying in a district that is called Gruž, and this little boat was in the port there. And the view on the left is actually from the other district that is called Lapad, and it's on the other side of the bay than Gruž. What I should mention before we continue is that I didn't paint those on a location. I really hoped to do so, but it turned out it's not that easy and possible for me to do that. So I was mostly taking photos and painting them later in a hotel. So if you are wondering if those are done with urban sketching rules, they are not, but they are still done on holidays and I'm really glad about it. I find it to be a great souvenir for me, and also it's still a holiday journal. What I would also like to mention is that those were my first paintings, and I can see that the colors here are pretty pale. In the next pictures I did quite a better job with the colors, to be honest. But this is due to the materials that I was using. I was using this water brush and I'm not super proficient with it. So those first paintings are not the best, perhaps. Next we have a tree that was in a very interesting shape. I don't know if the painting shows it, but I immediately spotted the interesting shape of it, so I decided to paint it here. It was spotted in a nice forest park that is called, I will probably say it wrong, Šuma Pelika I Mala Petka. And this view on the right is also from the same park, but it's overlooking the city of Dubrovnik. This is Lapad or Mokoshica part of Dubrovnik. And there is a very significant bridge that you can see there. We were actually driving through it when we were leaving Dubrovnik. With this particular painting, there was a difficulty of a multitude of houses that were seen. It would be totally impossible for me to paint everything with details, so I just marked some of the roofs with my inkliner, and for the rest I just marked where the greenery was, and then I just added little spots of reddish paint to mark the additional roofs. For me, the focus of this picture was the bridge, so this is why it's made with much more detail than the city. Here on the left we have two plants. One is lime tree. We found it near the old town of Dubrovnik in a small park right next to the entry to the old town. And this violet plant is called Purple Heart. And there were so many of those plants growing there. It seemed that in every garden there was one. So I decided to paint it. It actually comes from Mexico, so it's not a national Croatian plant, but I only found about it later. But still, it was growing everywhere, so I decided to paint it. And here we have a picture in vertical orientation. It's actually on the way back from the park where the tree and this view come from. Leaving this park, there was this passage between the houses, and it consisted of many stairs, and there were multiple gardens on right and left, and it looked very nice. Now we have some paintings from the old town of Dubrovnik. This picture on the left is from the city walls. There were those little buildings that looked very interesting, so I decided to paint them. I was painting this on a train when we were leaving Croatia, but on this train's way there were a lot of curves and tunnels, so it was quite wobbly. This is why those stones on the wall are so sloppish, because I couldn't really handle my brush. Here in the background there is Lockroom Island visible. And on the right, we have some palm trees. I don't know what species of palm this is, but this is actually the view from the same little park that those lime trees come from. And it was right next to the Ploče gate, which is one of the gates to the old town. And now we have a view for the whole city of Dubrovnik. The view comes from the fortress that is on the other side here, and there was a really nice view for the whole city, and this is also the Lockroom Island here. There are some boats that were passing by, and I had a lot of fun painting this. Like with all of them, I started with some pencil sketch and then line art. It took a lot of time because it's very detailed, but I'm quite satisfied with it. Here we have a gate. The little park that those palms come from is on the other side, somewhere here near the port. And this view with this structure, it is from somewhere here. In the back, there is another part of the city, which I decided not to put too much detail on, because it would take attention away from the main focus, which is this part of the city. So I just indicated those houses with little dots of not too saturated color, and the main focus is this part. It was also challenging because of the multitude of the houses in it. I just highlighted the most significant buildings, like those towers here, and some of the buildings that were closer and bigger. What's interesting is that in this part here, there is a basketball court, and when we were walking on the walls, there were some kids playing basketball. Now we have the only painting in this sketchbook that was painted on location. You can see that it's not that good as the previous ones. I didn't have my fine liner with me, so there aren't any details. And to be honest, it was not that easy to paint something without line art with this brush pen. This is a beach in Split called Plaża Zenta. And it's a very nice beach with gravel, and there were also little trees growing all along the beach. And it was painted during sunset. Those lines that you can see here are masts of the ships, because there is a little port or something like boat servicing area. I painted some people here. There were two ladies that were lying near us, and I decided to paint them, but I felt quite awkward having to glance at them. I didn't want to disturb them, so I tried to look as minimum as I could. Those people drawings are not perfect, to be honest. I could do a much better job if I had more time, if I wasn't concerned with staring at people too much. But to be honest, it was a great exercise to try to paint something on location. Maybe it's the worst part painting here, but it was definitely worth painting. Now we have some palm trees. All those palm trees come from the promenade in Split that is called Riva promenade. It's a long promenade with palm trees all along there. It looks very impressive, and I focused only on a couple of palms, so this is a smaller one. And those two were actually standing next to each other. The distance between them was further apart. However, I wanted to fit them both on one page so they're closer than in reality. And what was interesting to me was that those were two different species of palm tree. I wanted to paint the differences between them, and also both of them were having some fruits. Most of the palms on this promenade were this kind of palm, but there were some of this kind as well. And now we have some more architectural drawing. This is a Diocletian palace in Split. I'm not really drawing or painting any architectural drawings, so this was definitely a challenge. By no means this is perfect. The perspective is not fully accurate. Those arches are not exactly as they are, but to be honest, this painting looks very nice. It's one of my favorites. Probably it's one of the few that take whole both pages, and I really like this. I like the colors here. They are not as accurate to the reality as well, but in general I really like this painting. And I also really like the sky area here. It's very contrasting to the building, and I think that this is a very nice background, especially that those colors of the whole building are in a similar color scheme, and the sky is very contrasting and therefore emphasizing the whole building. Here we have two vertical pieces. This is also from Diocletian's palace. Unfortunately, the proportions of this tower, the clock, are not great. The line here is not even perfectly straight, but I'm not too bothered about it because I'm really not proficient at buildings. But I still like how it looks, how I made the texture on this building, how the light shines here and this shadow enhances it. But it's not perfect, but I like the overall look of it. Here we have a view to the Split port. This view is from part of Split that was called Mateuszka. It's just at the end of the promenade that the palm trees were from. There were some very big cruise ships at the background, so I decided to paint it. I really hoped for a better sea texture. It's not perfect, but again, with this brush pen, it wasn't that easy to make. What I like about it is that I managed to capture the change of the colors here, and because the sea was coming from a very deep dark blue to the greenish color and then some greenish yellowish stones that were here, and then there is gravel that is not covered with water. I like how it looks. And here we have some views from Plitvice Lakes. And the first painting is the view that you can see just after entering the park. Here is I think the biggest waterfall that you can see there is called Wielki Slap. And actually, when you look at this view from the entrance, there are two or even three lakes that you can see here, and many other waterfalls that are smaller. But the whole scene looks very nice and impressive. This is the most waterfalls that you can see at the same time in this park. All other views are from the same lake, Milanovac Lake. Although this view, this waterfall comes from Milanovac Lake to the next lake that is called Gavanovac, I think. And this was a really nice view with a very nice blue water, and I wanted to capture it. It was actually similar case to this painting where I also wanted to capture a very nice water, but here I was much more successful. Although it's still not what I imagine, it's definitely better than this one. To be honest, I kind of blame this pen because it was really hard to do smaller details with it. The tip is quite big, and also the water control is not that great. So while trying to paint smaller details and especially water, it was difficult to do. I think the view here is the same as this one, but seen from a different perspective. So this one was a little bit further, and the second one is once you get somewhere around here, then you can see the other waterfalls that are on this side. You cannot see this one anymore. Here are those other ones. What I was struggling the most was painting those lines on the water that are usually hard to paint, but with the brush that I had, they were even more difficult. It's not perfect, but I generally, from all of those Plitvice paintings, I really like the colors that are here. Okay, and the last one is also from the same lake, but when you go further, there are some waterfalls as well that you can see from the distance, and it's a very beautiful view, one of my favorite ones. It's not that impressive on my painting probably, but it was my favorite photo that I took there. I don't have any other paintings from Plitvice because we actually had a very bad weather. After we saw those waterfalls, it started to rain quite heavily, so we did finish our trail, but there weren't many occasions to take photos. So this is the end. Let me know in the comments what you think of travel sketchbooks, if you ever made one. Yeah, it was first holidays with a sketchbook for me. I really like watching those paintings. There were many more things that I could have painted, but there wasn't that much time to do so. I felt it was important to select only a few parts that impressed me the most, and I think it will be a nice souvenir for the future, and pretty sure I'm going to take it for the next travels. I used 11 pages for this first journey. I have actually a lot of left, although it's a small sketchbook, it's quite thick. Here you can see how much I used. I think it should be enough for 2 more travels. This is it. See you in the next video, and bye bye.